With the inflation debate still raging, I wanted to post a quick perspective on central banks' efforts to tame price growth, both here and in the United States. As we know, interest rates have risen sharply to levels that were considered to be outrageous and not within the scope of any sane forecast just over a year ago. How things can change so rapidly. Well, here's a quick review. Canada's policy rate was just 0.25% in January 2021 and now sits at 4.5%. It still seems unreal. Similarly, in the US, the official Fed funds rate was 0.08 a year ago in January and is now 4.58%. Now, the effects of this on economic activity are not instant. The terms on loans are only reset when they are up for renewal, and that is a staggered process that stretches out over approximately 2 years. The impact is more or less instant on variable rate loans, but the full impact of any interest rate increase on economic activity is typically realized between the first and second years after the change. Now, if these typical dynamics still hold, it means that the economy is going to be reacting to last year's rate increases through the balance of this year and into the first part of 2024. Now, is rate tightening over? Well, we all hope so. The Bank of Canada seems to be in a holding pattern, although the January job numbers will raise concerns about whether the economy is cooling enough to keep a lid on prices. Now, south of the border, hot employment growth in January led the Fed to indicate that further tightening may be required. So where the Fed goes, Canada may go. Now, what do recent price statistics themselves say? Well, not much if you look at the most visible metrics. The Consumer Price Index in Canada is still up 6.8% over last year's level, and in the US the same measure is up 6.5%. That's miles from the 2% target and suggests that more tightening is needed, not just to tame prices, but also to cool general inflation expectations. Now, strip out the more volatile consumer goods like food and energy. This is referred to as core inflation. You get a similar result. The numbers are lower than for all goods and services, but still well above target. They're well above 5%. So on the face of it, current rate hikes are scary, and it seems like there's more to come. Well, another way of looking at the same price numbers suggests that both here and in America, the central banks have tightened enough or are very close to being done. What really matters is current monthly price growth. We all know that 1 month does not a trend make. So we look at a series of monthly changes. Let's choose a 4-month average, adjusting this average so that it corresponds to the popular annual numbers so that we're talking about apples and apples. This produces a shocking result. In Canada, monthly inflation is actually at 2% now. Core inflation is running modestly higher at 2.3%, but it's on a steady downward trajectory. In the US, all items Consumer Price Index calculated this way is actually at 0.7% and falling. Yikes, that sounds like overkill. Now, thankfully, that is heavily influenced by the volatile goods. Core inflation in the US is still at the 3% level, although it too is falling fast. Run these monthly numbers out long enough, and they become the visible numbers everyone gets. The trouble is, if we have to wait a few months before our expectations are reset to today's price growth reality, then there's a huge risk of central banks going too far, bringing unnecessary damage to the economy. The good news is that central banks seem to have done their work. The bad news is we don't get it, and it would take a Herculean communications efforts by central banks and the army of pundits who understand these dynamics to not only help us understand it, but also change our collective behavior. But it would be more than worth it if it saved the economy from otherwise unnecessary rate increases, the resulting needless loss, and the greater danger of disinflation or worse, deflation. So it's up to pundits. You guys, get to your megaphones. Till next week, I'm Peter Hall.